Hey guys, quick question. Have you ever thought, why can't I just do the things I know are good for me? Not in a judgmental way, but in that weird, honest, half-laughing way when you realize you've spent 20 minutes reading about healthy routines while slouched over with a bag of snacks? Yeah, we've all been there. Tonight, we're not here to judge or push. We're here to unpack the truth behind what people often call laziness. Spoiler alert, it's probably not laziness at all. So go ahead and hit like if you want more soft motivation like this. And if it feels right, subscribe too. Leave a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from right now. Now take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop, and let's gently dig into this idea together. You know those moments when your brain whispers, you should go for a walk, but your body replies with an unbothered shrug and maybe a snack instead? That's what most people call laziness. But here's the thing. What if it's not laziness? What if it's something else entirely? Let's imagine your motivation is a little campfire. On good days, it's crackling with flames, warm, comforting, energizing. On bad days, it's just embers. Still there, still capable of growing. But it needs tending. When you don't do the things you want to do, it's usually not because the fire went out. It's because something, stress, sleep deprivation, mental clutter, dumped a whole bucket of sand over it. And yet, you keep blaming yourself for not being more disciplined. Sound familiar? Let's go deeper. You wake up and scroll for 20 minutes. That's not laziness, it's habit. You don't cook a real meal and just grab cereal again. That's not laziness, it's decision fatigue. You skip the walk because your brain's still buffering from last night's 5 hours of sleep. That's not laziness either, it's exhaustion. Experts still argue whether we can even separate mental from physical energy in any meaningful way. But what we do know is that your brain, your body, and your daily patterns all speak the same language. And right now, they might be saying, I'm overwhelmed. Here's the mainstream fact. The average person makes over 35,000 decisions per day. That's a lot of mental tabs open. No wonder you feel like closing the laptop and disappearing into a blanket sometimes. And here's a fringe tidbit you probably haven't heard. There's a tiny part of your brain called the habenula, often referred to as the disappointment center. When it gets triggered too often by failure, stress, shame, it actually dampens motivation signals. It tells your brain, why bother? You'll just mess up again. So when you call yourself lazy for not sticking to your plans, you're actually activating the very part of your brain that keeps you stuck. Harsh, right? But also kind of freeing. Because if the problem isn't laziness, then the solution isn't hustle. It's healing. Think about that. The opposite of laziness might not be effort. It might be clarity, or rest, or kindness toward yourself. You don't need to grind your way to healthy habits. You need to understand what's been blocking your energy. You've probably noticed that some days you can do all the things. You stretch, you hydrate, you floss. And other days? Total flop. This isn't about willpower, it's about friction. What stands between you and that habit? Is it mental clutter? Low energy? A physical mess in your environment? Once you start paying attention to your friction points, you'll realize it's not about being good or bad at habits. It's about making it easier to show up for yourself. Here's a gentle exercise, don't worry. You don't need to write anything down. Just think it through as you lie there. Pick one habit you've been calling yourself lazy about. Just one. Now, ask yourself, what's actually making this hard? Is it timing? Energy? Distractions? Shame? What would make it feel 10% easier tomorrow? Don't aim for perfection. Aim for 10% easier. That's it. Because healthy habits aren't about proving anything. They're about staying in conversation with yourself. Every time you ask, what do I need right now to make this easier? You're building trust with your own brain. You're showing yourself that effort doesn't have to come wrapped in guilt. Remember when we mentioned that fire? You don't yell at a fire for not roaring. You give it kindling. You protect it from the wind. You feed it slowly. So instead of asking, why am I so lazy? Try, What's the smallest thing I can do to give myself a spark? Maybe it's leaving your yoga mat out the night before. Maybe it's drinking a full glass of water before coffee. Maybe it's just sitting on the edge of your bed and taking 5 long breaths. These are tiny, barely there moments. But they're not nothing. They are the beginning of everything. And if your brain is still whispering, "But that's not enough," you can gently reply, "I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm trying to build a life I can actually live in." You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're just human. A little tired. Maybe a little overwhelmed. And definitely worthy of small, kind steps towards something better. You ever notice how some days you can plow through a to-do list, clean the kitchen, prep a healthy meal, and even do a 10-minute stretch before bed? And then other days, brushing your teeth feels like an Olympic event. It's easy to assume that the difference between those days is just willpower. Like you magically woke up with more of it one day and less the next. But here's the plot twist. It's not really about willpower. It's about energy. Your body is not a machine, it's more like a phone. And some days, you wake up at 95%. Other days, you're starting at 17% and no charger in sight. What feels like a lack of motivation is often just your body waving a tiny white flag, begging for a break. So, if you've been beating yourself up for not pushing through, maybe ask yourself this instead. Am I just too drained to try right now? Let's break it down. Your brain uses up to 20% of your total energy every single day, even though it's only about 2% of your body weight. That's a lot of power for such a small organ. And when you're making decisions, switching tasks, overthinking, or just trying to hold in a snarky comment during a Zoom meeting, that's energy drain, not laziness. Ever heard of the term ego depletion? It's this idea that the more you resist things during the day, resist snacks, resist checking your phone, resist telling someone off, the more your self-control kind of runs out, like a battery. Although experts still argue whether ego depletion is a real, measurable thing, or more of a mindset. But honestly, you don't need a lab coat to know that some days you just can't.
And that's okay.
Now here's the fringe fact that'll make you tilt your head. There's this theory in behavioral science that willpower is context-dependent, not internal. Meaning, you don't have willpower, you're more likely to borrow it from your environment. If your surroundings are chaotic, if your routine is out of whack, if your lighting is too harsh, or your phone is buzzing every 2 minutes, you're going to feel depleted. But if you tweak those external factors, even slightly, your motivation tends to magically return. So instead of trying to push yourself into action, what if you looked at your energy like currency? You wake up with a certain amount. Every task costs something. Scrolling? Costs focus. Arguing? Costs peace. Skipping lunch? Costs stamina. And when you're broke, emotionally or physically, it's not that you don't care. It's that you literally can't afford to care right now. That's where realistic goals come in. Let's say you've got a goal like, I'm going to meal prep every Sunday for the whole week. Sounds noble. Looks great on a Pinterest board. But if you're starting from low energy, that goal might as well be climb Mount Everest and knit a sweater at the summit. Too big. Too demanding. And if you don't do it, what happens?
Guilt. Shame.
Disappointment. That good ol' habanula lighting up again. Now imagine the same intention, but smaller. I'm going to cut up 1 bell pepper and boil some eggs. That's it. That's the bar. Not glamorous. Not post-worthy. But achievable. And strangely, those small wins actually build more energy. Because success, even tiny success, creates momentum. It's like putting a few coins back in your energy bank. Think of your energy like a thermostat. You want to keep it from dipping too low or rising so fast you overheat and crash. That means setting goals that warm you up without burning you out. Something like 5-minute walk, standing up during one meeting, drinking water before coffee, writing a sticky note with a single word that inspires you. These goals aren't revolutionary, but they're doable. And when you actually do them, your brain gets a little dopamine hit. It says, Hey, we followed through. Maybe we're the kind of person who does that. And the more you do, the more that identity sticks. Here's a thought. You've never actually lacked motivation. You've just had the wrong type for the amount of energy you had available. Low energy needs low bar motivation. Gentle, flexible, soft goals. High energy can handle structure, ambition, even intensity. But knowing which mode you're in, that's the skill. That's how you stop seeing yourself as lazy and start seeing yourself as in tune. So tonight, ask yourself this simple question. What's one tiny thing I can do tomorrow that won't drain me, but might lift me? Maybe it's switching your phone to grayscale. Maybe it's putting your workout shoes by the door. Maybe it's lying on your floor and stretching like a cat for 90 seconds while your coffee brews. You don't need to run on 100% every day. You don't even need to make big moves. You just need to respect your energy. Protect it. Nurture it. Let it rise when it's ready. And in the meantime, let yourself rest without guilt. Because some days, the most motivated thing you can do is protect your peace. You know that moment in the morning when your alarm goes off and your brain immediately starts negotiating? What if I just snooze once? Or maybe I can skip stretching today or forever. That little internal debate, that's the front line of your habits. And more often than not, it's where the day is won or lost. But here's the thing, they're not actually big decisions. They just feel big because they happen when your willpower is at its absolute lowest. That's why this section is all about building a morning routine, not a perfect one, not an Instagram-ready one, just something yours. Something gentle, repeatable, and light enough to carry even on the tired days. Most people think they need to overhaul their whole morning. Wake up at 5 a.m., journal, workout, meditate, and then hand grind some ceremonial matcha. Relax. That's not a morning routine. That's a full-time job. So let's go smaller, gentler, something sustainable. First, let's anchor in this mainstream fact. Your brain is most impressionable in the first 30 minutes after waking. That's when your mind is shifting from deep rest into beta wave focus mode. If you flood it with emails, chaos, or TikTok drama, well, it's like setting the tone of your day to anxious raccoon energy. Instead, think of those first 30 minutes like sacred real estate, prime time. And no, you don't need to be productive. You just need to be intentional. One action, one cue, one breath. That's enough. Here's a light visual. Imagine your morning like a dimly lit path. You don't need a spotlight to see the whole trail. You just need a tiny flashlight to see the next step. And that next step? That's your starter ritual. A starter ritual is a small, repeatable cue that tells your body and mind, hey, we're waking up now. It could be lighting a candle while your coffee brews, splashing cold water on your face, playing the same 30-second instrumental song while stretching, saying something as simple as "here we go" out loud. These micro-habits become anchors. And when your brain hears the same cue enough times, it starts to link it to what comes next. It's called habit chaining, and it's how you sneak bigger habits into your life without feeling like you're forcing them. Let's say your ideal morning includes 10 minutes of yoga. But right now, you barely brush your teeth. Okay, let's shrink it. Don't aim for yoga. Aim for putting the mat on the floor. That's it. Once the mat's down, maybe you stretch a bit. Maybe you don't. But you showed up. That's what matters. There's this fun little fringe tidbit from habit psychology. Researchers have studied how rituals, like brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand, can reset attention and awareness. It's called habit breaking to create habit making. Weird? Definitely. But it works because it forces your brain to wake up, even slightly. It nudges you out of autopilot and into intention. And remember when we talked about energy? Morning routines are not about doing more. They're about managing what little energy you have and steering it where you want to go. Still, experts argue whether mornings are truly the best time to establish habits, or if that idea is just a productivity myth. Night owls, after all, tend to function better with evening routines. But what's not debated? Consistency beats timing. So whether your morning starts at 6 a.m. or 11:30 after a night shift, what you do in that first chunk of time matters more than the hour. And by the way, let's lose the idea that morning routines have to be impressive. Here's a radically simple version. Open your curtains. Light wakes the brain. Drink a full glass of water. Sit on the floor for 2 minutes with your eyes closed. That's it. That's a routine. And when repeated daily, those tiny actions compound. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. No one finishes brushing and thinks, wow, that changed my life.
But you do it anyway.
Because the benefit comes from the build-up, not the moment. Now, let's tie in some practicality. Want your morning routine to stick? Use the 2-minute rule. If a habit takes more than 2 minutes to start, your brain will resist it. So strip it down until it's too easy to ignore. Want a journal? Just open the notebook. Want to meditate? Just sit down and hit play. If you do more, great. But the win is starting. And if you miss a day, forgive yourself by dinner. Don't wait for Monday. Don't make it dramatic. Just try again tomorrow. Because habits aren't about streaks, they're about identity. Every time you show up for your morning ritual, even for 2 minutes, you're reinforcing the belief that you're the kind of person who takes care of yourself. So tonight, as you drift off, picture your morning, not as a test, not as a performance, but as a gift to yourself. You don't have to do it all. You just have to do one thing, intentionally, with love, and without pressure. That's where change begins. Let's talk about motivation. Our old friend, our favorite excuse, our ever-elusive spark. You probably tell yourself things like, I'll start eating better when I feel more motivated, or I just need to wait until the inspiration hits. But here's the uncomfortable truth wrapped in a soft blanket. Motivation is not what gets you started. It's what shows up after you start. This might sound backwards, especially if you've been led to believe motivation is the magic key to change. But let's gently flip that idea on its head. Think about the last time you did something hard, like going for a walk when you really didn't want to, or making a healthy lunch even though the couch was calling your name. Remember how good it felt after? That light, energized, smug in a good way feeling? That's because action breeds motivation, not the other way around. There's a mainstream fact that supports this. Research shows that dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, doesn't just reward accomplishment, it actually activates when you anticipate progress. So when you take the tiniest action, even if it's just writing a to-do list or putting on your sneakers, your brain goes, oh, something's happening, and starts dripping in motivation juice. You feel more ready, more willing, and that's your spark. On the flip side, waiting to feel ready is like standing next to a cold stove and saying, I'll cook once it starts warming up. You've got to light the flame. Let's pause here for a fun, slightly weird fringe tidbit. There's a theory floating around in behavior design circles that goes something like this. Motivation is a lazy liar. It tells you what you should do, but conveniently disappears when it's time to do it. That's why some psychologists suggest designing your life as if motivation won't show up. Build systems, cues, environments that don't rely on your mood. Think of motivation as your flaky friend. You love her when she arrives, but you sure as heck don't plan around her. That's where systems come in. If your brain is wired for survival, and it is, then it will always default to what's easy, fast, and familiar. So if the goal is to move more, eat better, sleep deeper, or just exist with more ease, then your job isn't to feel like it. Your job is to make the path of least resistance lead toward what you want. Here's where it gets really interesting. Experts still argue whether intrinsic motivation, doing things because you value them, is more sustainable than extrinsic motivation, doing things for rewards or recognition. But in real life, it's rarely that clean cut. Most of us are motivated by a blend of both. You might stretch in the morning because it feels good, intrinsic, but you might also like telling your friends about your new morning flow, extrinsic. Guess what? That's fine. Use whatever fuel works. The real secret is to stop over-relying on emotional motivation and start leaning into structural motivation. That's the stuff that doesn't care how you feel. It just runs. Like putting your workout clothes next to the bed. Like scheduling a walk with a friend. Like keeping cut-up fruit in your fridge so your late-night snack doesn't default to a bag of regret. Let's zoom in on a little internal dialogue that might sound familiar. I should really go for a walk. But I'm tired. I know I'll feel better after. Still tired. 15 minutes pass. I could have been done already. That loop? It's a motivation delay spiral. And the fastest way out is through motion. Just the act of moving toward the goal, even if it's baby steps, disrupts the loop. You're teaching your brain, we do the thing, and then we feel better. Not the other way around. Let's talk tools. Want to hack your motivation? Here are 3 soft strategies that don't involve yelling at yourself. Reduce the friction. If your sneakers are buried in the closet, guess what? You're not going for that walk. Make the next step obvious and easy. Create a when-then rule. When I turn on the kettle, then I do 5 stretches. When I close my laptop, then I take a deep breath and walk away. The structure replaces the need to think.
No decisions.
Just flow. Gamify the process. Put a sticker on your calendar when you complete your habit. Watch the chain grow. Yes, it's childlike. Yes, your brain still loves it. These aren't tricks. They're reminders that motivation is more like a pet. You have to feed it, care for it, and understand when it's hiding under the couch for no reason. And if your motivation truly vanishes for a while, that's okay. You're not broken. You're just a human being in a body that gets tired, distracted, discouraged. Your job isn't to be endlessly driven. Your job is to notice gently and ask, what would help me take one tiny step forward today, even if I don't feel like it? Because the truth is, you probably won't feel like it. But that doesn't mean you can't start.